Good morning. Welcome to the Moncloa complex. The event is now beginning to present the Foco Africa 2023, Spotlight on Africa 2023. I give the floor to Arantxa González Laya, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, European Union and Cooperation of Spain. President of the Government of Spain, I'm here to present the Foco Africa 2023, Spotlight on Africa 2023, and we'll begin with an African proverb that says, if you want to travel fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. The document that we're presenting today is, above all, an expression of Spain's commitment to striding forward with Africa and to go far with a firm step, hand in hand, towards a shared future of prosperity and opportunity. It's also an invitation to Spanish society, to its companies, to its universities, to its NGOs, to get to know Africa, to get involved in Africa, and to get involved in its development. We are experiencing times of multi-headed crises and conflicts. Obviously, there are inevitable temptations to retreat, to look within, to close ourselves off from the global world, to go back to our little villages. And this is a generalized thing we've seen worldwide. But today, with Foco Africa, with Spotlight on Africa, Spain wants to send a very clear message: retreat is not the answer. Now is the time to strengthen cooperation and shared management with our neighbors and our partners. And this is exactly what Foco Africa 2023 seeks to do. Now, Spain is doing this, putting this spotlight on Africa for three reasons. One, to recognize that Spain and Africa live not only in a shared space, but also we have shared historical, cultural, and social and economic ties that unite us. The future of Africa will mark the future of Spain. Peace and stability in Africa means peace and stability for Spain. And that is why our interest is to walk down this road with you together. Secondly, we recognize how dynamic Africa is, the opportunities that the entire African continent represents for us, and we have to leave behind visions of our neighboring continent that are reductionist and looking at the catastrophes. No, we have to see that there is economic progression, economic progress, that they're fighting climate change, that the strength of their youth, the spirit of their women is also our spirit, that of Spain. And that is why Spain can and must create, through its private sector, through its companies, through its NGOs. We need to create opportunities to be more present in Africa. And thirdly, it's because we recognize the need to act together with all of the administrations, with all of the stakeholders in our country under a single flag. Team Spain with Africa. We want to be reliable partners for Africa with clearly aligned policies, clearly aligned with the continent's priorities. First, we want to be partners for peace and security. We want to be partners for the development of sustainable economies, inclusive economies, seeking greater regional integration and combating together against the scourge of climate change. Third, we want to be partners to promote trade and the presence of Spanish corporations and investments in Africa. Fourthly, we want to be partners to strengthen global public services. We were talking about this just a moment ago: healthcare, water, sanitation. In a word, to build resilience. Fifth, we want to be partners in humanitarian action. Sixth, we want to be partners in gender equality and in the empowerment of women and girls. Seventh, we want to be partners for managing migration and mobility, collaborating in the combat against irregular migration, working together to promote safe, orderly, regular migration. I trust that Foco Africa 2023 will serve as a guide to give our new approach to Africa a way to have the convergence of Spain's interest with those of African countries, and also, as we want it to be, a practical instrument at the service of all of the Spanish stakeholders who are working with and for Africa. Lastly, I wanted to underscore that today we have the great good fortune to be accompanied by one of the most representative voices of how dynamic this new Africa is. A dynamic new Africa that isn't asking for handouts, it's asking for opportunities. Their presence today is a clear example. It bears witness to this strong entrepreneurial Africa that is beginning to emerge. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you. I now give the floor to a video with a speech by Madam Aissata Saltal, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and of Senegalese abroad of the Republic of Senegal. Due to the mutual interest of our countries, the minister was asked to focus on the issue of the empowerment of African women, which is a priority shared by both our countries. Your Excellency, President of the Government of Spain, Madam Minister of Foreign Affairs, Spain and Cooperation, the interpreter cannot hear the video. The interpreter can neither see the video, nor hear the video, nor see any subtitles. Therefore, the English interpretation for the moment will go silent.
Ce qui est nécessaire.
I would like, above all, to address especially my thanks to the Spanish government, whose friendship with Senegal is very long, deep, and mutually enriching in different areas. This can be clearly seen in the upcoming visit, which we are really looking forward to, with great friendship of the President of the Government of Spain, who will be arriving in Senegal very soon. And I am pleased to take advantage of this opportunity today to welcome the great Spanish initiative, the Foco Africa 2023, which has Senegal as one of the pole position countries. I am sure that this visit of the President of the Government will be a wonderful opportunity both for the Spanish side and for Senegal. So, the theme of today's meeting is the empowerment of women and the support we must provide to our young people, which is extremely important throughout the African continent and, of course, especially for Senegal. As to the African continent, many mechanisms have been implemented to support women. Examples I could cite include the Maputo initiative, launched in 2003, to implement programs to more effectively support the empowerment of women and policies to do so with an effective fund for this. Now, at the national level, we could mention among the strategies implemented 3 mechanisms that I consider extremely important. The first mechanism is Senegal's national strategy for the empowerment of women, aimed at liberating all of the potential, all of the energy of Senegalese women to better support them. The second mechanism is designed to support micro-businesses and SMEs launched by women and by young people. The third mechanism, which goes even further in its financial commitments, is a mechanism called the DERFJ, the Delegation for Jump-Starting Entrepreneurship Among Women and Young People, to finance their projects. Now, indeed, under the aegis of this project, so far, we've seen 150 billion CFA francs earmarked for 2021 and 350 billion CFA francs for the next 3 years. What all of this means, ladies and gentlemen, is that for Senegal and for His Excellency, President Macky Sall, the vision is clear and very simple. We are convinced that women and young people represent the future of our continent. Our human capital is a great source of wealth, something our continent can offer the entire world for its future development. This is why we must use every means at our disposal to support women and young people together. People tend to say that Africa is the cradle of humanity, but we believe that Africa can represent the future of humanity. Our common future depends on our supporting together women and young people. And this is what President Macky Sall firmly believes. This is what Senegal is going to do. And I thank you all for giving us pride of place in this project. Such an important project, and together we can exchange ideas, together we can cooperate, together we can act to make these ideas a reality on the ground, to realize the crystal clear vision that President Macky Sall shares with the government of Spain. Thank you very much. I now give the floor to Rafael Martín de Bustamante Vega, the CEO of the Elecnor Corporation. Mr. President of the Government of Spain, Mr. President of the Republic of Ghana, ladies and gentlemen, ministers of the Government of Spain and of the Government of Ghana, secretaries of state, ambassadors, authorities, officials, friends. It's an immense honor for me to be participating as the representative of a Spanish corporation in this event to participate the Foco Africa 2023, Spotlight on Africa 2023. It gives me an opportunity to share some ideas on Elecnor's experiences in Africa and the experiences of Spanish companies and the role that they can play in the relationships of our country with countries of Africa. I'd like to express our satisfaction at the decision of the government of Spain to put Africa at the top of the agenda of Spain's foreign policy agenda. That includes economic diplomacy. This is a tool with a lot of tradition in other European countries and which is increasingly demanded by Spanish companies. Foco Africa 2023 is launching an unequivocal signal to our companies that the Spanish government and the public institutions of Spain are going to accompany us. They're going to stand with us in a decisive, coordinated manner in our strategy to internationalize in Africa. It's also very exciting to see that a leading country like Ghana, today present at this event with the highest level of representation, is so interested in this initiative. Your political stability, your clear commitment to sustainable economic development make Ghana a reference point for the entire region, for the entire continent of Africa. I remember very well the first time I went to Africa. At the time, I was a young man, recently got out of university. I was just starting in Elecnor. At the time, my company had just launched a great project in Côte d'Ivoire, which is very important to our company. It was a contract that began in 1981. It was our first contract in Africa, a market which at the time still was very much in the hands of France. And it was a very successful project that was expanded, and it ended in 1989. We built more than 1,000 kilometers of high-tension electric lines, and of all of its equipment. We had low-tension lines as well. And we brought electricity to hundreds of towns and cities. It was a nationwide action that promoted its development, and it changed us forever. We learned so much. We were so captivated by the company, by the country, that we wanted to have other contracts in other countries of Africa. And that was how I wound up traveling to Senegal in 1990. And that was where it began my own personal and professional idyll with this beautiful continent of Africa. Elecnor continued to grow apace in Africa, Cameroon, Senegal, Ghana, Angola, where we have been working for 31 years straight, working with countries that very quickly gave us new contracts. Today, Elecnor is working in 14 African countries with 1,600 employees on the continent, and during our 63 years of history, we can very proudly say that we have gone all over Africa, and we have worked in 30 of its 54 countries. Elecnor is firmly committed to the well-being of people. Elecnor is contributing to bringing such essential services as water and electricity to millions of people all across Africa, participating in the design and construction of a multitude of infrastructure projects, sustainable infrastructure projects, projects which are, by the way, supported by Spanish public financing funds. But our positive impact can also be seen in how we do things, in how we work, in the quality of our construction, in how we treat our local workers, in this workplace safety projects that we have and policies that we have that are at the vanguard of the continent, how we manage social and environmental issues, complying with the highest possible standards of the international community. Also, I must underline the work of our foundation, the Elecnor Foundation, for social infrastructure and educational infrastructure, such as collaboration with hospitals in Ghana, in Cameroon, training programs, and high voltage lines in Angola. To date, our bilateral trade figures could seem modest. According to Economics, the African continent in 2019 was only 6.4% of all of Spain's exports, the origin of 8% of Spain's foreign purchases, and 2% of Spain's foreign investment. There are great opportunities in Africa that justify the economic attraction that Africa has aroused around the world. It's growing. It's growing in GDP, it's a growing middle class, it's progressive industrialization, its potential for infrastructure, the interest in exploiting its natural resources in a respectful way with the environment, and the growing activity of civil society. Spanish companies that are especially competitive in many of these areas can play a decisive role in strengthening the commercial and investment relationships with private investment in Spain. But the take-home message that I wanted to give you all today isn't just a market analysis or something about figures. No, it's our commitment to Africa. We are committed to Foco Africa 2023, to the Spotlight on Africa 2023, showing how the Spanish private sector can contribute to the economic, sustainable, resilient, and inclusive growth of Africa. Spanish companies are committed to African society, and we feel co-responsible for promoting a new socioeconomic model worldwide based on the principles of integration, justice, and equity. Through our activity, we are committed to the peoples of Africa to contribute to the defense of the environment, to combat climate change, to work towards an energy transition, to facilitate access to water, to electricity, to sanitation, and to telecommunications. In sum, to building sustainable and quality infrastructure. It's true that the risk measurement systems that are applied, as well as perceived risk factors, mean that some companies and financiers are very conservative in their approach to some countries in Africa. We understand that there's a lot of work ahead of us, and governments and institutions need to find the way to overcome these barriers that are still hindering the development of private investment in Africa. Programs like the External Investment Plan of the European Union could help. I wanted to end today by sharing the secret of our growing presence in Africa, the secret sauce of Ayalek Nor, why we've been able to slowly but surely open up a market in Europe, in Africa, is our people. Our people are our secret weapon. There's so many young people and not so young, engineers, men and women, who get to the most remote places that are very hard to get to with an enthusiasm, with a passion, with a devotion to building complex infrastructure to overcome logistical and management barriers that can seem unimaginable. Young people who fall in love with Africa, in love with its people, who become integrated, who make friends, who even make families there. This capacity to communicate with our clients, with our local purveyors, with our workers, to create teams for teamwork, for shared projects, that's our secret recipe for success in Africa. Under FOCO Africa 2023, we want to bring together different social, territorial, cultural, and economic realities. And by simplifying this with the idea of saying African, sometimes can even seem almost offensive. No, Spanish companies need to look at Africa, at its will, at its commitment to go country by country, culture by culture, people by people, to integrate into these different societies, to understand their problems, and above all, to seek the prosperity of its people. God bless Africa. Thank you very much. Now we have a video conference from His Excellency Akinwumi Adesina, the President of the African Development Bank.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, buenos dias a todas y todos. I sincerely thank His Excellency, Pedro Sanchez, President of the Government of Spain, for inviting me to speak at this very important event. I am especially pleased that President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana is there visiting with you. He is a great son and leader from Africa. Spain is a good friend of Africa, and Spain is a great supporter of the African Development Bank. I wish to thank Spain for its contribution to the recent 7th general capital increase of the bank, where shareholders increased the capital of the bank from $93 billion to $208 billion, the largest capital increase in the history of the bank since its establishment in 1964. Spain also increased its support to the 15th replenishment of the African Development Fund with 54 million euros, an increase of almost 200%. Muchas gracias. The African Development Bank Group is an excellent investment for Spain and all of our shareholders. The bank's work over the past 5 years alone has impacted on improving the lives of 335 million people in Africa. The bank responded quickly to support African countries in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The bank announced a $10 billion crisis response facility to support countries. We also launched a $3 billion Fight COVID-19 social bond on the global capital market, the largest ever US-denominated social bond in world history. And earlier this month, the bank was named the best multilateral finance institution in the world for 2021 by Global Finance, the prestigious US financial and investment magazine. So, Spain is investing in the right bank with a heart for Africa's development, a global bank with a focus on Africa. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is a market that cannot be ignored. With a population of 1.3 billion people, the largest population of young people in the world, with a rapidly rising middle class, Africa offers a huge consumer market. The African Continental Free Trade Area, with combined GDP of $3.3 trillion, is the largest free trade zone in the world. Now, massive opportunities exist for investments in infrastructure, especially renewable energy. Now, just think of the following. Africa has 10,000 gigawatts of solar potential, 350 gigawatts of hydro potential, 110 gigawatts of wind energy potential, and 15 gigawatts of geothermal energy potential. Well, you know, we can't eat potential. The size of the infrastructure investment opportunities annually in Africa is 68 to 108 billion US dollars, including for energy, for roads, for ports, for ICT and rail. Immense opportunities exist for water and sanitation, pharmaceuticals, and healthcare infrastructure. The size of the food and agribusiness market in Africa is estimated to be worth $1.3 trillion by 2030. Think of it. The African Development Bank, of course, is already working with Spanish companies on some of our major projects. Spain and the bank supported the Lake Turkana wind energy project in Kenya, the largest wind power project in sub-Saharan Africa. Spain and the African Development Bank co-financed the world's largest concentrated solar power project, the Ouarzazate, in Morocco, which was constructed by Spanish companies TSK, Acciona, Sena Consortium. Well done. The bank is currently mobilizing resources for a $20 billion US desert to power project to develop 10,000 megawatts of solar power for the Sahel region of Africa, to provide electricity for 250 million people. It will be the largest solar zone in the world. Your Excellencies, given that Spain is a global market leader in renewable energy, I would like to request that Spain joins us in making this project a reality for Africa. Now, since 2015, the African Development Bank has awarded 59 contracts to Spanish companies. The landmark Gambia-Senegal Bridge was built as a joint venture of a Spanish company, Isolux, and a Senegalese company called Areski Group. Talking trade. Trade relations are very good between Spain and Africa. In fact, Spanish sales to Africa were almost 19 billion euros in 2019, accounting for 19% of Spain's export to countries outside of the European Union. Spain's imports from Africa were 27 billion euros in 2019. Now, within the EU, Spain is Africa's largest customer. Within the EU, Spain is also Africa's third largest supplier. For your Excellencies, a lot still needs to be done on Spain's investments in Africa. Spain's investments in Africa account for only 1% of its total global investment stock. Now, let me tell you that Africa is open for good business. Africa is making massive reforms to make it easier to do business. In 2019, the Doing Business report noted that Africa led the world for 6 consecutive years in terms of business regulatory reforms. Your Excellencies, at the 2018 and 2019 Africa Investment Forum, organized by the African Development Bank and our partners, investment interests worth $78.1 billion were secured. I'm delighted that that included $600 million syndicated loan for Ghana's cocoa board to boost its cocoa sector. President Nana Akufo-Addo was there, and he can tell you all about it. I can almost feel him smiling. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Aranches Gonzalez Laya, My dear sister was there then, and she can testify. Now, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us turn around the low investment of Spain in Africa. I therefore welcome you all to the 2021 Africa Investment Forum to be held in November, for which we have already prepared bankable projects worth over $208 billion. I applaud and congratulate you on FOCO Africa 2023. Together, let us expand Spanish Africa investments. Bienvenida a Africa.
A continuación,
Now we have a video presenting the FOCO Africa 2023. FOCO Africa 2023 is the Spanish government's strategic commitment to Africa.
Paix civile, là où elle existe, avec un investissement dans l'économie. Pour que des emplois soient créés,
c'est absolument fondamental pour la paix et la sécurité.
Nous avons ce qu'on appelle ici le Covid économique. C'est ainsi qu'on a eu, il y a 3 mois, beaucoup de nos jeunes qui ont essayé de prendre la mer avec un bilan, hélas, très triste de plus de 400 jeunes qui se sont noyés dans l'océan.
Or prevent the irregular migration.
At the continental level, I think the momentum created by the Continental Free Trade Area. The second priority should be boosting social protection. And finally, the third priority, I think, is digitalization.
No serán alcanzables sin grandes mejorías en buena gobernanza.
Hay que conseguir que la vacunación contra la COVID-19 llegue a todos los rincones de África.
nous savons, nous, pouvoir compter sur nos amis espagnols dans la simplicité, l'accès facile, la proximité géographique, ont contribué à créer une communauté d'intérêt dans certains domaines.
Spain has detached itself from the law.
La diplomacia cultural ha servido para tender puente.
L'Espagne sert également d'exemple à nos investisseurs sénégalais avec la modernisation du système agricole.
If we are going to move into a more climate responsible behavior, we need to lower our carbon footprint as much as possible, and Spain certainly knows the techniques, knows the technology, and can be a big player in terms of sustainable infrastructure.
Hoy en día sigue habiendo mucha empresa española y mucha institución española que tienen muchísimo miedo a África y bueno, que viajen por este continente y verán que realmente no hay tanto de qué asustarse.
Muy importante también para la paz y la cohesión social el que las mujeres se vean apoyadas.
Et évidemment, il y a également la coopération entre les femmes espagnoles et les femmes sénégalaises et africaines.
Rescataría sobre todo los apoyos dados por España para reducir la brecha de género y empoderar a las mujeres. Un ámbito donde, sin embargo, es necesario saber adaptarse a las culturas locales.
El gobierno español ha decidido tener una política exterior feminista.
We have to focus Africa 2023 and to try to engage the countries themselves to look at what are the priorities within the country and things that they think might be useful for the population, for this mutual partnership that they are looking forward to.
Tiene la palabra.
I now give the floor to His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana.
touring the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium as part of my brief visit to Madrid. Hopefully, sooner rather than later, we'll be able to return our lives back to normal once we rid our respective nations of COVID-19. What the pandemic has taught us is that our world is truly interdependent. For a virus that originated in China has engulfed the entire globe. We need to cooperate more, and we need to cooperate smartly. In the midst of all the complexities of the 21st century, our interdependence requires such cooperation. So I applaud Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez for convening Focus Africa 2023 and for the brilliance of the Plan Africa 3 initiative. Excellencies, I'm certain that all of us gathered at this event have become accustomed to news headlines such as at least 43 African migrants drowned off Libya, UN agencies say. African migrants drowned as boat sails to Spain. At least 140 migrants drowned off Senegal coast, UN says. For those of us who come from a continent that is in possession of some 30% of the Earth's remaining mineral resources and some 50% of the world's arable lands, it is disheartening to acknowledge that African youth do not see a future in their respective countries and are willing to cross the Sahara Desert on foot and drown in the Mediterranean Sea in a desperate bid to reach the mirage of a better life in Europe. It is eloquent testimony to the inability of the current structures of African economies, producing and exporting raw materials, importing manufactured goods and services from Europe and elsewhere, to generate the numbers of decent, well-paying jobs that Africa's youth crave. But fortunately, there's now a consensus amongst the current crop of African leaders of the urgent need to remedy the situation and relate with the rest of the world on the base of trade and investment cooperation in value-added activities. As President of the Republic of Ghana, I believe the time has come for Africa, Spain, and indeed the rest of Europe to establish a sustainable strategic partnership based on trade and investment cooperation on the exchange of value-added transactions. It would obviate the resort to aid which has not achieved its purpose. Hence the mantra of Ghana Beyond Aid, which is the overarching goal of Ghanaian public policy. Indeed, a very important plank of this new strategic partnership between Africa, Spain, and Europe would be the strong support for the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, which began trading on 1st January. The AFCFTA will link all the 54 markets of Africa, covering 1.3 billion people, into a single market. It is the world's largest free trade area outside of the World Trade Organization itself. By 2050, it will cover an estimated 2.5 billion people and have over a quarter of the world's working age population. Imagine the investment and business opportunities offered by the infrastructure required to link our markets more effectively. And imagine the business opportunities that this huge market would offer for manufacturing and service firms from Spain and Europe that could establish production facilities in Africa to serve the African markets. And with the enhanced growth that will result from all of these, the market opportunities for exporters from Spain and Europe could be truly amazing. Inasmuch as the pandemic has wreaked havoc on the Ghanaian economy, we've seen a relatively favorable situation with respect to our health outlook, contrary to the fears many had about the impact of the pandemic in Africa. Our active cases in Ghana are declining and now stand at some 2,410 cases. We've recorded some 740 deaths and have since the start of March vaccinated some 500,000 Ghanaians. The goal is to vaccinate 20 million Ghanaians by the end of the year, which would effectively mean the vaccination of the entire adult population of our country. We in Ghana are embarked on a path of accelerated economic development through improved macroeconomic management, improved domestic revenue mobilization emanating from reforms in public policy revenue and administration, creation of conducive environments for businesses to flourish, tackling corruption, and curbing excessive bureaucratic procedures. We're ensuring that all our children have unfettered access to education through our free senior high school policy. We're moving towards attaining universal health coverage for all Ghanaians through the National Health Insurance Scheme. We're processing more and more of our raw materials through our One District, One Factory initiative. We've become a net exporter of food under our program for Planting for Food and Jobs, and we're determined to move Ghana to a situation beyond aid. We have set our sights high, and to our friends in Spain and Europe, I urge you to join us in building a continent of prosperity and societies of equal opportunities for all. Once again, I thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, and I look forward to welcoming you to Ghana very soon. I thank you for your attention.
The President of the Government will close today's event. Ambassadors, Secretaries of State, CEO of ELECNO, representative of Spanish companies in Africa, ministers, dear President, you will allow me to start with an anecdote, because here we are in the headquarters of the Presidency of the Government of Spain. This is the Miquel Barceló Hall, the hall where we are today. He's one of Spain's great artists. And here we have some examples from Miquel Barceló's collection of paintings made in Africa. He painted works to evoke the time he spent in Africa. And that means, dear President, ministers, that in Spain we have a very deep impression from our relationship with the African continent over the years. And I'd also like to begin by harking back to what the Minister of Foreign Affairs just said this morning. Spain is a country with a clear global calling. The President of Ghana just said that when he talked about the challenge, the global challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic around the world. And Spain is committed to leading the way to tackling the great global challenges, along with other countries like Ghana. The health, economic, and social emergency that has arisen from this crisis that we are all experiencing right now because of the COVID-19 virus has made it ever more evident and clear the challenges that we are already facing, even before the pandemic. These are global challenges that need a united global response, a response in which Spain, my country, cannot stand on the sidelines. On the contrary, this event shows that Spain is leading, contributing with ideas, initiatives, and projects to promote this global unity along with other countries. And that's what we're doing here today. That's why we're here today. And that's why I'm so grateful for your participation. With your presence, we, I think, are showing that we are revindicating the multilateralism that has given so many good results over the years, in which we can continue to work for the history of humanity. And I'm especially thankful to all of you who are here today, because today is the day when the government of Spain is presenting a program that's imbued with hope. We've called it Foco Africa 2023, Focus on Africa 2023, and it's a program that represents the action of the Spanish government and the Foreign Ministry, of course, and the Spanish government as a whole, with our commitment with the neighboring continent of Africa in upcoming years. And the clearest example of this global ambition has been what up until now was called the Third Plan Africa, which we approved back in 2019. But today we're going one step beyond. We want to make this decade, this new decade, such a complicated start to the decade with the pandemic, we want to call this the decade of Spain in Africa. And that is the heart, dear President, of the Focus Africa 2023. In sum, for Spain to be ever closer to Africa and for Africa to be ever closer to Spain and therefore to Europe. We want to build bridges, economic, social bridges, wide bridges with many, many lanes that are wide enough and strong enough for Europeans and Africans to be able to cross together back and forth. I want to be very clear here. The future of Europe, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs just said, Arantxa just said, it's tied, unquestionably tied to that of Africa. I say this because our present is already tied to Africa. Spain knows that very well. And I feel in my bones that Spain is welcomed with open arms on our neighboring continent. And also, Spanish society is increasingly aware in its diversity, and that our diversity includes Afro-descendants that live amongst us in our country. We are proud of the integration of men and women proceeding from countries on the African continent, from which we are only separated by a narrow strait of water, just a few kilometers of water. And that's why it's inevitable for us to be concerned, as the minister said before, about the situation of African young people who are forced by their families' precarious economic situation, as the president of Ghana said, and by the lack of opportunities in their communities, lack of opportunities that we have here in Europe as well. This is not just an African issue. Countries like ours, for example. And therefore, in the case of African societies, sometimes these young people risk their lives to get to Europe. Spain is seen, because it is, as the southern gateway to Europe. And undoubtedly, we want to be a strategic and a special, I would say special, partner. I'm repeating, strategic and special partner. And that's why we believe that through global unity, we can tackle the challenges that affect us all. It's the best way forward. As the president said before, we are all combating the coronavirus. Dear President, welcome and congratulations for the heartening figures from the epidemic in the pandemic in Ghana. And it makes us see the effectiveness of good governance in tackling not only COVID, but in recovery in the post-pandemic era. What I was saying was that COVID-19, if you'll allow me to say so, it's a kind of time machine, which has accelerated everything. We were saying that in the bilateral meeting we had just now. In Africa and also in Europe, we're facing such urgent situations before the pandemic as climate change, not insofar as the need to reduce the impact of climate change, but also to adapt to a reality that exists in our countries. The challenge of preserving peace and security, Spain is firmly committed to peace and economic and social development in the Sahel, a region, a zone of Africa, which obviously we have many interests that go beyond any others. The eradication of poverty, the elimination of discrimination amongst people, especially when it affects women and girls. Not very long ago, we could see in this very same hall, we were presenting our feminist foreign policy. We are a government that is committed to a feminist foreign policy. We also face the challenge of how to satisfy basic social needs, how to improve governance, and how to strengthen our institutions, how to manage the flow of people, goods, services, capital, how to undertake the digital transformation, as the President of Government of Ghana said before, without leaving anyone behind, without anyone feeling that they've been left behind in their villages. And as you know, both from the viewpoint of climate change, the fight against discrimination, the fight for equality, to eradicate poverty, these are all priority challenges for the government of Spain. Indeed, this is explicitly stated in our plan for recovery, transformation, and resilience, which is going to involve 140 million euros over the next 6 years for the reconversion of our country, 140 billion euros for the reconversion of our country. And we wanted to briefly touch on the situation in Africa before and after COVID. Without the pandemic, pre-COVID, we saw in Africa the rise of the urban middle class. It was exponential. The promotion of infrastructure plans in most of the countries on the African continent, they were revitalizing their economies. And they had a clear political direction, accompanied by clear advances in, as we were saying before, the representative of the Inter-African Bank said, clear examples of democratization, of political participation, of conflict resolution, of reform, of applying African solutions to African problems and to African challenges. But the big step forward that Africa was seeing can be summed up in one example. Up until 2020, 6 of the world's economies with the highest increase in GDP growth in the world were in sub-Saharan Africa. And a total of 26 African countries were ready to become medium income countries that same year. And of course, we have to highlight the extraordinary example of Ghana, whose president is with us today, and I'm so grateful that he's with us in this important event. The country of Ghana was the 3rd largest rate of growth in sub-Saharan Africa, and in 2019, it grew 6.5% in a single year. So thank you so much, Mr. President. And also, congratulations, and congratulations from all of Spain for these splendid results in Africa, in Ghana. And hopefully when we have come out of this pandemic as soon as possible, that you will go on to greater heights. So in this, then, as I was saying before, COVID-19, the pandemic burst onto this scene of economic and social progress. And it's had an economic impact as well, not just a health crisis, because Africa is facing its first recession in 25 years. The World Bank today is forecasting that in Africa we're seeing the people living in extreme poverty increased by 40 to 60 million people. And for its part, the African Union is estimating that 80 million jobs, both formal and informal, could be destroyed throughout the continent due to the pandemic, and exacerbating the lack of opportunities of young African people and deepening structural disequality. I believe that leaders did react very quickly. They launched the African Continental Free Trade Area, which has begun January of this very year. And in these difficult circumstances, these complex circumstances, I want to highlight how different African governments have stood out from the first day in how they've managed the pandemic. Their excellent health and preventive management of the pandemic. Both Ghana and Senegal are eloquent examples of this, with much lower COVID rates than that of their neighboring countries. And therefore, our commitment to Africa is that. To a strong Africa, Spain will walk with Africa in its recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and the development of its security, its economy, its health system. Our goal is to contribute with the Focus Africa 2023 program. It's an urgent, immediate response that articulates the goals of the Third Africa Plan, and at the same time, it's aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations, but it's also in line with the goals of the 2063 African Union Agenda. So in sum, the long-term structural projects that are designed by Africans for Africans. The foreign policy of any country, logically, also has to do with domestic interests, and that is also the case of Spain. However, the truth is that in the case of Africa, our objectives and our interests practically coincide 100%, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs just said. And that's why the priorities that are expressed in the Foco Africa 2023 program are in line with the priorities of Africa. First, as we've said, peace and security. Because our efforts for development can only bear fruit in a safe environment, meaning that our people are crying out for peace, where violence has compelled them to close schools and health centers, where farmers and ranchers can't do their work without having their lives in danger, where women and children live in fear, or where the construction of infrastructure projects has been paralyzed because of lack of security. A peace that undoubtedly must be built with social advances and with coverage of the basic needs of our citizens. And here is where you can see it's very eloquent what the government of Ghana has been done with free education, free universal education for everyone in Ghana. And secondly, Spain also wants to be a partner in the just, sustainable, inclusive development of your economies. How? By supporting African regional integration, by combating climate change, and by promoting the ecological transition. And to this end, we will continue to promote debt relief, as different African countries have called for, different governments have called for, and we will continue to support the integration processes at the regional level, in particular, the African Continental Free Trade Area. And here, we think it's a priority to promote the corporate presence of Spain and Spanish investment in Africa. This is a pending issue with the Spanish economy and with the Spanish corporate infrastructure, and this is an investment that we want to see create jobs on the continent, especially foreign investment, Spanish investment throughout the African continent, which, as I said, is contributing already to job creation, as the CEO of Elecnor said, in different sectors. I would like to highlight here the agro-industrial sector, so important for Ghana. We are so committed, we are decidedly committed to sustainable industrialization in Africa, and also to building a future of shared prosperity. Our minister said this. The future and the prosperity of Africa is also the future and the prosperity of Spain. Our companies now see the incredible opportunity of rebuilding in a much more sustainable, green manner, not only our economy, but the African economy. And also the competitiveness of Spanish companies in renewable energies are an example of how Spain is an ideal partner for the development of sustainable economies in Africa. The third priority, as I said before, is to consolidate our feminist diplomacy. Our foreign policy is feminist. And so we want to recognize everyone, to recognize the transformative power of women in every area, not just the economy. We want for our African partners to promote the equality, gender equality, and the participation of women in all spaces, but also in decision-making processes in the public sphere. And in particular, we are convinced of the need for them to participate, for women to participate in conflict resolution and prevention. Now, our fourth priority I wanted to talk about today is obviously related to the health emergency that we're all tackling. Spain is committed to ensure, along with other countries, fair and equitable access to the COVID-19 vaccine with criteria of justice and equity. And we are leading, together with other countries, from the very beginning of the pandemic, different financial mechanisms to guarantee this objective. And different African countries have already received their first shipments of vaccines through the COVAX facility, the international COVAX facility that Spain has supported from the beginning. Fifth and lastly, I could not neglect to mention the Focus Africa 2023 program, which is vindicating a strategic partnership that includes management of safe migration and mobility and secure migration and mobility for our citizens to combat the irregular migration and the human trafficking networks needs to be done by promoting safe, orderly, regular migration, always respecting human rights. And we can't stop also to promote the participation of African students through the European program Erasmus Plus and through Spanish universities, as the President was saying earlier today, because our Spanish universities are also called to play a more high-profile role in the strengthening of our relations, of Spain's relations with Africa and those of Europe with Africa through education, dear President, ministers, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, in sum, Africa can count on Spain and on Spain to be the voice of Spain in the European Union. In fact, we want to be the leaders of the European Union's actions in Africa. We want to build, as I said, on the positive aspects of our relationship, which are so many, our commitment to peace, to stability, to shared prosperity on both continents. I am deeply convinced that this relationship is a strategic partnership based on mutual respect and on dialogue with our African partners. 2020, dear President, ministers, ambassadors, 2020 was the year of the pandemic, but also the year of the resistance of our societies to the pandemic. And this year, 2021, I am convinced is going to be a year of recovery because it's going to be the year of vaccination. But faced with a global health, economic, and social emergency, which is still affecting our societies and it affects the entire world, the only possible response is extraordinary global unity. FOCO Africa 2023 is conceived as an instrument to serve all of these goals and to be implemented through dialogue. Thank you so much to all of you for being here, especially the President of Ghana. Thank you for all of your efforts. And I assure you that we will be listening very closely to our African partners to achieve together a future that is more prosperous, more just, more inclusive, more equitable, and undoubtedly more sustainable. I believe that our societies will be deeply grateful for that. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, ministers. Thank you, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. The event has ended. Thank you very much for your participation.